All right, good to go. Now, just a little bit of backstory. We're in Mark 7, and we didn't finish, but let me tell you what's going on in Mark 7. Jesus reminds or teaches those who are with or and around him that the traditions of man should not be put above the priority of the law of God. And he gets real serious with some Pharisees that had come all the way from Jerusalem to challenge him in that regard. So that's the big picture. They are physically in, I looked this up a while ago, they are in Gennesaret, which is, and I will bring this up, physically located not in that window. Let's see, there it is. Physically located at the top, let's say northwestern end of the Sea of Galilee. Does it matter? I don't know, but it might relate to another story later on, so you kind of keep track of where Jesus is going and what he's doing. Now remember, he is continually going forward toward the cross, and it's just a few weeks away at this point. So you can kind of hear this drum beat in the background. And he is, and I asked Larry Piniella for the name of the drum beat that starts kind of slow and then beats up faster and faster and faster. And he said it's called the accelerando drum beat, where it starts slow and then gets faster and faster. So you can kind of hear that in the background as Jesus is working. And so sometimes we'll see him, or we'll hear him he'll heal somebody, and it's usually in a a Jewish area, and he'll say, "Don't tell anybody," because he knows he doesn't want things to go too fast. He'll be in a Gentile area, and he'll heal somebody, and he'll say, go tell everybody," because he knows that the word's not going to get around as fast. It's not going to be as volatile in that area. And it's just interesting as he does this, he's controlling the timing of when things are going to happen. Even when he asked his disciples, who are people saying that I am? And so he's wanting to keep his ear to the hand on the pulse of what's going on. Who do people say that I am? Where am I in the process? And when he asked, I think we brought this up a week or two ago, when he asked those things, it seems that he purposefully denied himself the all knowledge, the omniscience of knowing all things, in order that he could experience what we experience, where we don't know all things, because Scripture says that he had all the problems that we have. That's one of the problems that we have. We don't know what's going on everywhere else. And so I think it seems like he limited himself in these situations. He knew what was coming, big picture, but he didn't know. He had to continue to ask what's going on. He had to continue to make sure people were careful about telling or not telling. So he's controlling this accelerando drum beat going to the cross. It's got to happen at the right place, at the right time, not too soon, not too late. With all that said, we are in verse 21, at verse 21 of chapter 7. We're going to talk about the Syrophoenician woman, and it's going to strike a nerve with some people that might listen to this particular story. So, because he gets it in our culture, he really talks down to this woman, but we'll explain. All right, 24 to 26. I'm going to ask Dad to start us out, please, sir.
And from thence he arose and went into the borders of Tyre and Sidon, and entered into a house, and would have no man know it, but he could not be hid. For a certain woman, whose young daughter had an unclean spirit, heard of him, and came and fell at his feet. The woman was a Greek, a Syrophoenician by nation, and she besought him that he would cast forth the devil out of her daughter.
All right, let's check out where this is very quickly.
I'm doing the box.
So as you can see, it is, if you see where Beirut is, if you can see my mouse up there, is my mouse moving on the screen for you? Good.
Yes.
So you can see Beirut, and so that's obviously Lebanon. So here's the border with Israel. Israel's down here. There's the Sea of Galilee, and this is up south of Beirut, north of Israel. So this is a Gentile area, and some commentators said that it was a mixed area of Jewish and Gentile, Greek. And so this is where he's headed, going to Tyre, and he's going to, and later on he's going to go to Sidon. All right.
It's a long way to travel by foot.
Huh?
It's a long way to travel by foot.
It's a long way to travel. You're right. I don't think they thought as much of it as we do today. We think about that. It's like, oh man, I don't want to walk that far.
No, I'll walk down to the mailbox.
No. So it's in modern day Lebanon. They did not, it was a mixed area, but they did not get along with the Jewish folks. And so him going there was still, questionable, but it seems obvious he went there to kind of get away, to chill just a little bit. That seems to be the thought. But he was already recognized. Word was getting out, and it seems clear he's going to have to heal somebody. He ends up talking with this lady who came and recognized him, at least by his actions, maybe by the number of people that was with him, who knows, but his reputation preceded him. So let's read 27 and 28. Doug, would you read that?
Okay. And he said to her, "Let the children be fed first, for it is not right to take the children's bread and throw it to the dogs." But she answered him, "Yes, Lord. Yet even the dogs under the table eat the children's crumbs."
So, in our culture, it sounds like he really put her down. He called her a what?
Sounds like a dog.
Sounds like he called her a dog. But this turns out to be a prioritization issue. If we look at Genesis 22:18, it says, "Through Abraham, all nations would be blessed." Jesus was just following the pattern. And so the gospel must flow through the Jew first, then to the Gentile. And Jesus fully recognized that. So you got to ask in your minds, well, why did he go to a Gentile area then? Well, again, he was very tired from the actions, the healings and so forth, and he just fed 5,000 people, and he's kind of trying to get away. That seems to be the time, and he's still wanting to get away with his posse, with his boys. Remember, they were just sent out in 6, I believe. They came back to him, and they were talking with him, and he said, "Okay, let's get away." And where they got away to, the crowds followed him, and they ended up feeding 5,000 men, plus women and children. And so they haven't got a rest yet. So it's commentators are saying that he was probably trying to get away with the guys to do some more teaching and some rest, have some rest with them. But now this woman recognizes him, and he's trying to explain to her, not yet. You're not the priority yet. Kind of leave us alone for the moment, and let the Jewish people have their turn. And again, he understands Romans 1:16. It says that the Jew will believe first, and then the Greek. So, for I am not ashamed of the gospel, for it is the power of God unto salvation to everyone that believes, to the Jew first, and also to the Greek. In Isaiah 49:6, I will make you as a light for the nations, that my salvation may reach to the end of the earth. And so it starts with the Jew and goes to the Gentile. However, her response to this shows a real insight. Somehow it was revealed to her what was going on, because she did not fight the whole situation. She didn't demand her rights. She didn't start whining and complaining. She came back with, yeah, but we can get leftovers. And I think Jesus realized, again, he was self-limited in some things, and he realized the wisdom in that was more than just what she had to offer. It was revealed to her. The word dog in 27, verse 27, it says, the bread and throw it to the dogs. So there's 2 words for dogs in Greek. Kuum is something that's symbolic of that's immoral. So there's an example, Proverbs 26:11, like a dog that returns to its vomit is a fool who repeats his folly. So that's a bad connotation. That's not looking at a dog in a positive light. But this word that Jesus uses is canaria, which is referring to like a loved pet. That may not be totally positive in the way we think, but the idea is that you don't feed the dog, the pet even, what should go to the children. And so the priority is the children, and then whatever is left over can go to the pet. There's a parallel passage. In fact, this whole section is paralleled in Matthew 26, and it does exactly the same thing. So Matthew uses that canaria, that loved pet word, as opposed to the other one. In verse 28, again, notice that she is not demanding her rights, but rather she's asking for all. And in fact, she's not even asking for leftovers. She's just asking for whatever is falling off of the blessing that's available. So you got to ask yourself why. Well, let's read 29 and 30. Let's see, David, would you do that, please, sir?
Yes, sir. Then he told her, "Because of this reply, you may go. The demon has left your daughter." When she went back to her home, She found her child lying on the bed, and the demon was gone.
Cool. So he saw the wisdom in her. And again, it was probably revealed to her somehow. He certainly recognized that. But we have to ask ourselves, why did Jesus heal her daughter? First of all, she turned from her pagan gods to Jesus, because this is a pagan loving place. And she literally turned to Jesus for help. Secondly, she humbled herself before him. So she got down on her knees and she was asking him. Pride was not a part of the picture. Third, she accepted her place behind the Jew, as we do in our place. You know, when we studied Revelation, we began to understand that there are different categories of people. There are Old Testament people, and they fall into certain rules and certain ways of what's going to happen in heaven, so to speak, with them. There's a category of the church age, that's us. The category of Jews, is category of Gentiles, and so we're the same but different. So we have different roles to play. That was a hard lesson to learn in Revelation. That was interesting. Fourth, she comes with needs and not rights. And it is real hard for us Americans to swallow this, because we're all about, you're stepping on my rights. I have rights. You got to support that, blah, 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 blah. Jesus never said, stand up for your rights. He never did. And that hurts an American. As one who's an American, that's hard for me to swallow. But Jesus never said it. So it's interesting that we walk that little line there. Fifth, she had faith. She very obviously had faith. She had heard enough or seen enough to realize that Jesus could do this if he wanted to. And Jesus always responds to faith. He doesn't mention her faith here specifically, but in the parallel passage in Matthew 15:28, he does specifically mention her faith. All right, I have beat that to death, so let's move on. Verse 31, sorry, Jamal.
Then Jesus left the vicinity of Tyre and went through Sidon, down the Sea of Galilee into the region of Decapolis.
You know what? I'll accept that. Decapolis. I like either one. That'll work.
Okay.
That's cool. Does that ring a bell with anybody? That word, that name.
Decapolis.
Mm-hmm.
That was wasn't that where they started?
Maybe chapter 2-ish, maybe 1.
Isn't that the man who was cleansed from Legion and he witnessed to the entire Decapolis?
Right on target, David. And so, and he was told to go to his family and tell them, right, David? But he went out to the 10 cities around him, called the Decapolis, and started teaching. So it's interesting that now that the word is out and Jesus is going back to this region, and more people are hearing and more people are interested. So 32 to 35, Dad, we are back to you, sir. You're getting the long ones tonight.
32, 35.
Yes, sir.
And they bring him unto one that was deaf, and he had an impediment in his speech, and they beseech him to put his hand upon him. And he took him aside from the multitude and put his fingers into his ears, and he spit and touched his tongue. And looking up to heaven, he sighed and saith unto him.
That word,
Yeah, a difficult word. Ephphatha.
Yeah.
That is, he opened. And straightway his ears were opened, and the string of his tongue was loosed, and he spake plain. How far did you say?
That'll work right there perfectly.
Okay.
All right. Did you have a
Okay.
good pronunciation of that, Mr. Doug?
That word drove me crazy. And I found this pronunciation of it.
Okay.
And it is F-E-P-H,
Uh-huh.
and make it like a double F sound. F-F-A.
Ephatha.
Yeah. It's like a double F sound after E.
That's just not going to flow off my tongue. I don't know. Ephatha. Kind of a stutter F. All right. So pretty cool. So he just really expresses his love, and I like how he, we've seen the preachers on TV, and they'll make a big show out of trying to do such things, at least acting like they're doing such things. What does Jesus do?
Takes them aside.
Take them aside, get private, and then he does his thing. He shows his love. And so it appears that some of the things he might be doing, and he's going to do this with spit and one more thing with spit a little bit later on. And but the way he's moving, one commentator brought out that he was maybe, in a sense, having some sign language and showing the guy what he's going to do. I'm going to do this, and so that the guy's not nervous or whatever. So I thought that might be a good idea. But Jesus certainly communicates with him what he's going to do. I appreciate when the medical community communicates with me what they're going to do to me. Right, Dan?
Yes.
No doubt. All right, Doug, 36 and 37, please, sir. Finish it up.
And Jesus charged them to tell no one. But the more he charged them, the more they zealously proclaimed it. And they were astonished beyond measure, saying, he has done all things well. He even makes the deaf hear and the mute speak.
All right. And again, Jesus didn't make a show of the event at all. But he knew that the word was going to continue to get out. So he's having to, again, control that accelerando as it goes, trying to calm them down. And listen and look at what they say at the end. He does all things well. In other words, you could kind of read between the lines. He would make a great king, right? You can almost hear him saying that, because that's exactly who the Pharisees and all the people thought that the Messiah was going to be, a great king that was going to relieve them of the oppression of the Roman Empire. And they just knew that's how things were going to happen. So this guy, he can do all things well. You know what I'm saying? He can be a great king. All right, let's press on into 8. Jamal's next. Jamal, please, sir. Would you read 1 and 2?
During those days, another large crowd gathered. Since they had nothing to eat, Jesus called his disciples to him and said, I have compassion for these people. They have already been with me 3 days, have nothing to eat.
Okay. Now remember, we're in a Greek and Jewish Gentile area. There was a fella, he's a theologian by the name of Alfred Eldersheim. He says that every phase of Jesus' ministry was ended with feeding. At the end of his ministry to the Jews, he fed the 5,000. At the end of the ministry to the Gentiles, he fed 4,000, which we're about to see. When he was done with his Judean ministry, right before the cross, he ended it with the third feeding with his disciples at the Last Supper. I've never seen that before, but he's right. So he's going to end the Gentile ministry, no matter how short or long, with a feeding of the 4,000. And he has compassion on them. He specifically says, I have compassion on them. So remember, he's in the area of the Decapolis, where the demon-possessed man, formerly demon-possessed man, went and became really the first missionary that Jesus ever sent out. He's been with them for 3 days, teaching and healing, I'm sure. And let's see, in verse 2, Christ is prompting his disciples to finally get it. So I have compassion on the crowd because they have been with me for 3 days and they have nothing to eat. And he's probably hoping, since they saw the feeding of the 5,000, they've seen a number of other miracles. He's already given them power to heal and cast out demons. When he sent them out, he's already given them all that. He gave them the tools, and he's got to be thinking, aren't you guys going to take control? Aren't you guys going to, do what you have the ability to do? You've seen me do this, and you have the ability, but that doesn't come. In verse 3 through 3 and 4, I guess we're back to Dad. Did I skip you, David? Had you already read?
You must have skipped somebody.
Yeah, I must have. David, would you read 3 and 4, please?
Yes, sir. If I send them home hungry, they will collapse on the way, and some of them have come a long distance. His disciples answered him, where can anyone get enough bread here in this desolate place to feed these people?
All right. So, the Lord is just, he's begging them to finally get the clue, but they just don't get it yet. And it is unfortunate, but it's just true. I've got a long section, and Dad, it's going to be yours, but I'll take it. I'll take one for the team. I've already given you 2 long sections here. So I'm going to read 5 through 10. And he asked them, how many loaves do you have? They said 7. He directed the crowd to sit down on the ground, and he took the 7 loaves and and having given thanks, he broke them and gave them to his disciples to set before the people. And they set them before the crowd. And they had a few small fish, and having blessed them, he said that these also should be set before them. And they ate and were satisfied, and they took up the broken pieces left over, 7 baskets full. And there were about 4,000 people, and he sent them away. And immediately he got into the boat with his disciples and went to the district of Dalmanutha. All right, I have a chart for this, of course, which is
Wouldn't be like Rich to come unprepared.
That's right. There you go. All right, here's the chart. If we look at the differences between the feeding of the 4,000 and the feeding of the 5,000, we see that there's that Jesus is intending to rest in both of them. He was heading out to rest before having to feed these folks. He was teaching all day to the Jewish crowd, but he was healing for 3 days to the crowd, to the Gentiles. Jesus challenged the disciples to feed the crowd first in the feeding of the 5,000, whereas he had compassion for both of them. It was specifically mentioned, had compassion on the 4,000 and the 5,000. Jesus asked how many loaves. There were 5 and 2. This becomes important, believe it or not. 5 loaves to start with and 2 fish for the 5,000, 7 loaves for the 4,000 and small fish, not sure how many. With the event of Jesus directed the crowd both times to sit down himself, and Jesus blessed the food and gave it to the disciples to distribute in both the 4,000 and 5,000. There were leftovers of 12 baskets for the 5,000, 7 large baskets. It's mentioned in, this is a language thing that's you can pull out in the Greek, but not the English. 7 large baskets for the 4,000. And so the 12 baskets, I'm told in the commentary, is representative of the 12 tribes of Israel. And this feeding of the 5,000 was to what? A Jewish population. The 7 Gentile nations that were kicked out of Canaan are represented in the 4,000, which were all Gentiles. And you can prove it in, let's see, counting the number of Gentile nations that were kicked out of Canaan. The Amorites, you can hold your fingers up and count them if you want. Amorites, Hittites, Perizzites, Canaanites, Girgashites, Hivites, and the Jebusites. And I thought the first commentary I looked up on that, I thought, that's a little weak, but every one of them were solid on that. I thought that's pretty interesting. There was a strong draw into that concept. Hadn't heard that before. Have you guys?
Nope.
Yeah, I hadn't.
Now, I have an observation.
Please.
Okay. Jesus had said that I have compassion on the multitude because they have now been with me 3 days and have nothing to eat.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I can't imagine a revival meeting lasting 3 days and nobody going home and nobody eating.
Yeah.
That wouldn't happen today.
No, that would not happen today. And I kind of thought about that as well, Dad. But we got to remember too, it was Jesus. They had never heard anybody that was absolutely filled with the Holy Spirit, because that was the only place the Holy Spirit was physically present in the world. And he was doing healings at that time too. So that would be a big draw. What else would make you forget about being hungry? I can't imagine, but yeah, I totally agree. It just hardly wouldn't happen today. So interesting. I've never seen those compared before. And thought that was an interesting little tidbit there.
Would this be the last time that he feeds, when he feeds the 4,000?
Until he feeds at the Last Supper. Mm-hmm.
You know how I am with the biblical numbers and how they mesh together?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
When he fed the 5,000,
Mm-hmm.
he had it was how many baskets of bread? It was three baskets of bread.
5 left over, you mean?
No. To start with,
There was 5 loaves with 5,000.
5 loaves with 5,000. 5 is grace, God's goodness, and also represents the Pentateuch.
Yep.
Okay, and then there was 7, right? Was the last time that he fed?
Correct.
Okay, and 7 is resurrection, spiritual completeness, and the Father's perfection.
Yep. Right on target.
So that's where they start out with,
Mm-hmm.
and then we, of course, see where they end up at.
Yep.
So I always find that neat, the way the numbers work into it like that.
It is.
The chart that I've got on biblical numerals and their meanings and stuff.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they all have value. And a number is not, I really believe, like you, Doug, that I don't think that a number is used that is random. You know, it's in scripture. Yeah.
So far, I mean, and that's one of the things I find amazing about all this is the fact that everyone fits in like a perfect puzzle piece.
Mm-hmm.
It was made to happen that way.
Yep.
It wasn't by chance.
Yep. Totally agree. Totally agree. Let's see how we're doing on time. Just a little bit more here. 11 and 12. Nope, sorry. 11 through 13, Dad.
Yeah. And the Pharisees came forth and began to question with him, seeking of him a sign from heaven, tempting him. And he sighed deeply in his spirit and saith, why doth this generation seek after a sign? Verily I say unto you, there shall no sign be given unto this generation.
Go ahead and do 13.
Oh. And he left them, and entering into the ship again, departed to the other side.
So this is Jesus saying, talk to the hand. I'm done. He is highly upset, and I love this. I love what's coming. The wording wasn't just a request for a miracle. He had done tons of miracles. They had seen the miracles. The wording is that they wanted to predict kind of the future, and in order to test him. Well, if we look in, and Jesus knew this, and he had already set this up, but if we look in Deuteronomy 13, 1-5, and then again in 18:22, it prescribes the test that you give to a real prophet. And if the prophet says something's going to happen and it happens, he's a real prophet. If it doesn't happen, you're supposed to stone him and kill him. So it's interesting. Jesus set up this in the past. I mean, he's told the boys, I'm going to die. He predicts that he's going to die. In fact, we're about to get into a section where he gets seriously and gets real specific about it. And so, but he's not giving it to, he's not specifically saying it to the Pharisees. But his prediction is that he's going to die. So, and he's going to be killed by the Pharisees, by the leading people. So he provided the prediction of his death, how it would happen, by whom it would be done, and how long it's going to last, 3 days. And so Jesus was predicting his own death, which really proved his own prophetic nature, his own prophetness, his own Christness, his own messiahship. Does that make sense? He was telling them what's going to happen, but what's going to happen really was going to lead to his death. So it was the perfect storm. I'm not sure I said that in a way that made a whole lot of sense, but maybe it'll become more clear as we press on.
See, one of the things that when I read that came to my mind is he's traveling from all these different places,
Mm-hmm.
and he's performing all these miracles, and he's feeding the 4,000, and he feeds the 5,000. He's doing all this stuff that nobody thought was possible.
Mm-hmm.
Why would somebody feel like it was necessary to see a physical sign of what he's saying,
Mm-hmm.
rather than just trust in what he says
Mm-hmm.
after everything he's done?
Yeah. Well, Jesus, as you can see,
That goes back to like the lady that says you have such little faith,
Yeah, you're hitting on the right cylinders there, because when he said, "Truly I say to you, no sign will be given to this generation," and he left them, and he just turned around. He's done. He's over, because he knows good and well it doesn't matter what he does, they're not going to believe it, because they've hardened their hearts, and they're done. But they continue to ask for more, and he's just over it. I think we'll end it there. We need to bring it in for a landing. But this is such good stuff. I'm getting way more out of it than you guys, and I apologize for not being able to communicate any better than I do.